so tonight we're going to look at a two-part essay, okay? And still the remembrance of that cold. Okay, and once again, these slides juggle around a little bit, so we'll just let's start. Okay, so we're going to look at a two-part essay tonight, and generally our same standard strategy applies. So first of all, we're going to look at those questions. Remember, the top tip, always ask the right question and then you can get the right answer. Can you remember what question number 1 is? Question number 1. What's the, do you want to type it in the box? Question number 1. When I get my task essay, what question should I ask first? Can you type it in the box? What's the, just type in the one word, what's the? Do you remember? Oh, what's the topic? Remember that? What's the topic? Oops, where's my C? So question number 1, what's the topic? Question number 2. Can you remember question number 2? What's the? You want to type it in the box? Question number 2. What's the focus of the topic? And remember, we spent quite a lot of time focusing on that last week. And for this week, I was planning for us to construct an essay on the board together. But then, of course, we're locked down. So that's a little bit difficult to do here. But hopefully we'll have a lesson next week. And we can do that then. Good. Okay, and can you remember asking ourselves the 5 questions? Question 1, what's the topic? Question 2, what's the focus of the topic? Even more important. So we make sure we write right on focus. Question number 3, you can ask, what kind of essay must I write? What kind of essay? In other words, what purpose? Remember that one? Is that spelled correct? What the purpose? So what kind of essay must I write? And tonight we're working on a two-part essay. Good. And question number 4, a really important one. What question must I answer? I can write the right questions, then I can get the right answers. And what's useful about our two-part essay or 2-question essays, they actually give us the questions. So that's easy. Good. Let's have a look at our next slide. So if you want to just get ready with a pen and paper so you can take some notes. And also get ready to take some screenshots too. So, so you can keep some notes of this lesson. There we go. So there we are, our first 5 questions. What's the topic? These are really important. They just save so much time. They keep me on topic. They keep me on focus. They make sure I write the correct kind of essay so that I get my task response marks. And what question must I answer so that I also write on topic and on the focus of the topic. And then we're going to think and plan. But before we do that, let's have a look at what do I need to know for a two-part essay. Let's have a look at a couple of points. Okay, so first of all, we need to identify each question. So we will be given an essay topic with 2 questions, and we will need to answer each question in order to get our full task response mark. So the first question asks you, and this should actually will be on one page, the first question asks you to assess the situation. What is the situation in your country? How important is it? Why do you think this is? Well, what is the situation in your country? So these kind of questions. I think that a two-part essay is quite simple, really. I think it's a nice, simple form. The second question is, the second question asks you to give your opinion. So it might ask you something like, do you agree or disagree? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Or a translation of that, another way of saying that is it positive or negative? So let's have a look. Here is a two-part question, or a 2-question essay sample. And what I want you to do is I just want you to read through that slowly with me. Nowadays, the way many people interact with each other has changed because of technology. In what ways has technology affected the types of relationships people make? Has this become a positive or negative development? So if you can just make a screenshot of that, or maybe make a note of that, we're going to ask ourselves the first 4 questions. Okay, question number 1, or what's the topic? Okay, would you like to think about that? What's the topic? And what's the focus of the topic? I'll give you a moment or 2 to think about that, and type your answer in the chat box. So what's the topic? And what's the focus of the topic? I'm just going to get some water, sorry. Should probably be warm. There we go. Okay. All right. Good. So, what did you decide the topic was? Good. Thank you, Lena. Yes, the topic would be technology. And what is the focus of the topic tonight? What is the focus around technology? So what did you decide the focus was? So if we have a look at this essay here, let me just expand the screen again. Oh, look what it's done now. First of all, we're going to say that the topic is technology. Oh, it moves around. That's interesting. So we're going to be writing about tech. We're certainly going to be writing about technology and how it's changed relationships, how it's changed the way people interact. Okay, so that's going to be the focus of my topic. How people interact. Good. So question number 1, my topic. Question number 2, my focus. Question number 3, we know we're doing a two-question essay. And then question number 4, what questions must I answer? And as I mentioned, they give us the questions. There's my question number 1, and it's usually 2 questions. In what ways has technology affected the types of relationships people have? And question number 2, has this become a positive or negative development? So we're going to deal with this in 2 parts. Let's have a look at the next one. Any questions so far? Yeah, that's quite correct, Lena. Yes, sorry, I didn't see that. Well done, yes. Any questions so far? So yes, most decidedly. Lena, you're looking at the, was that question and answers after the focus? Yes, has technology affected relationships, or how has technology affected relationships? That's correct. Good. Any other questions? Good. I'll just enlarge the screen again. Thank you, Lena. I'll look at we've covered these. What's the topic? What's the focus? And we know what the 2 questions are. And now we want to think and plan. And what we're going to do first is we're going to first think of ideas to question 1. Question number 1, there it is on the side over here. In what ways has technology affected the types of relationships people have? We could say that another way. This word how is very useful, and it's something that you can actually use in your writing as well. So we could say, how has tech changed different types of relationships? And this is quite interesting, different types of relationships. So it's giving us a clue there that we can actually talk about a couple of different types, and we're going to have a little brainstorm and see what kind of relationships we can think of. Okay, so first we're going to identify, brainstorm and identify in the table below. All right, so very quickly I want you to think about, oops, just seeing if I could make that. What are some kinds of relationships? Think of 2 maybe, or 3. And just very quickly make a little note, or you can type it straight into the chat box if you want to. What type of relationships do we have? What different kinds of relationships? And how has tech changed these relationships? So how was it in the past in that kind of relationship? And what's changed? What is the situation now? So I'll just give you a few minutes to fill that table in. You can type it in the chat box if you like. So what different types of relationships? Yes, we could have, yes, absolutely. Hi, Rishani. Yes, we could have definitely a marriage relationship. Definitely. What other kind of relationships do we have? And how was marriage in the past? And how has it changed now because of technology? I'm wondering if everybody can chat. I'm not quite sure how to arrange that. You can all see my screen, I take it. That is shared. Friends, yes, Lena, absolutely. Friendships, and how were friendships in the past? And how are friendships now? Excellent. Good. That's right. We used to write letters, didn't we? And now we text or phone. Good point. Very good point, Lena. Good. All right, so let's have a look at some relationships. And this has come up on 2 pages again, unfortunately. So let's have a look. This is some of what I thought about was school friends. And friends asked, in the past they used to play sport. They used to play outdoors. Friends used to go to large gatherings, like, and now they play Minecraft at home, and they interact on the computer with other people in chat rooms, online chat, Facebook posts. And as a result, maybe children don't play so often, they meet fewer people, and the focus is more on technology. It's the focus on the virtual relationships. Let's have a look at another kind of relationship. Right at the top. Yes, we mentioned married couples. What did they do in the past? And well, in my culture, they may have done ballroom dancing, or they may have gone to sports clubs and club events. And they had a lot of society. They had gatherings and they had parties and social events. And now I think more people may tend to stay home. Perhaps they don't play sport quite so much. Maybe they watch more television because there's much more on television. And eventually maybe there is, there's just a lot, there's a lot of entertainment on television. So people tend not to entertain themselves anymore. They don't get around a piano and have a sing-song like our grandparents did. And then I've put a third one in, hobby friends. So that would be people who you know because you share a common interest. Like, do you belong to a car club? Do you fix cars on the weekend? Or do you like to go bird watching on bird watching weekends? So we tend to have people and we interact around that sort of thing. And this was very common before music clubs. But today there's less involvement and there are more virtual interests. People can access a lot of these things on TV. So we've got quite a lot of ideas there. Good. Now let's have a look at the second question. So think and plan. Now we're going to give our opinion. Do we think that this is a good or bad thing? There's our question over here in blue. Has this become a positive or negative development? And we could say it's positive because, so we want to give a reason, or negative because. Good. So once again, I just want you to think about your points and why that's good or bad. Why it's good now to be able. Is it good now to be able to text and phone, or was writing letters better? So have a look at what you think this column over here. The points that you've mentioned and we've mentioned, good or bad. I'll give you a few minutes. You can type in the chat box. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Definitely. For example, you can have a long distance relationship now, especially if your partner has to travel or has to live away from home. Absolutely. Yes, I probably focused a little bit on the negative there. Definitely, there will be less social interaction. And why is this a negative thing? Why is it negative to have less social interaction? Definitely, yes. People could very definitely feel lonely and isolated, couldn't they? Good. All right, so let's have a look at the next slide. So building on the points that I made, which were all rather negative, we could say that children don't play anymore, and maybe they meet fewer people, and the focus is all on tech and not so much on real close relationships. And we'll have a look at why this is bad. As married couples, we said they stay at home and they watch TVs. Why is this good or bad? And less involvement with friends. Why is this good or bad? Now, I've got a lot of information here, but I'm also just giving you topic-specific vocabulary. All right, we'll need to narrow this down a little bit. I got so excited about this essay. I was hoping to be able to write about 2 main points, but I found very quickly I had over 300 words, and so I had to just cut it back and just write about one type of relationship. So let's have a look. We've got some possible good and bad outcomes. Have a look at this word. That's quite useful. A good or bad outcome. In other words, what's the result? This is a great word for business as well. So let's have a look at children. I think that it's bad because children are not playing sport. They're not learning to play in a team anymore. They're not learning to be a good or a bad winner. And it's one thing to be defeated in Minecraft when you're in your home on your own, but it's another thing to be defeated and lose on the football field, for example, in front of all your friends and family. So we have to learn to be a good loser too. And of course, if they're in front of the computer, they don't exercise and perhaps they're eating more junk food and maybe they get fat. We've got a lot of information there. If they meet fewer people, they have a small circle of friends and no network. And a network is very important. I learned from a business guru that your network is your net worth. Your net worth, how much money you've got in the bank, how many assets you have, your network is your net worth. Okay, and of course, these children never develop or might lose the social skills of how to interact, how to have a conversation. Good. How to build relationship. Okay, and how to keep relationships smooth. So there are lots of very vital skills that they could be losing. And of course, as you mentioned, Lena, if they're focusing on virtual relationships, they are alone. Okay, good. You managing to take some screenshots? And I'll move on to the next slide. Just let me know if there's anything you want me to go back to if you didn't get a screenshot. Oh, and I had even more points here. Yes, I think one of the good points about spending a lot of time, especially children, playing computer games, is that they get computer skills. They get skilled. They're very comfortable with it. They learn to type very fast, and they just become more tech savvy. And of course, we live in a tech world, so we need these skills. So that's been I think that's an important point. Good. So we looked at married couples and what they did in the past, growing vegetables, sports clubs, gardening, and what are they doing today? They're probably watching more TV. They're on their own mobiles and their own computers, and they are playing card games by themselves on the computer. And why do I think this is bad? They don't spend time together. They don't work on their relationship. They don't build together. And possibly they get bored and they lose that sense of connection or intimacy that we have in a relationship, a marriage relationship. That's important. And I'm not talking about sexual intimacy now, just that sense of feeling close together, supporting one another. Intimacy. That's a nice word, okay? And it's one that you can apply to things like relationships, communication. Something you could apply to the elderly as well. Good. And then let's have a look at bad or our hobby friends. We used to go to club meetings a lot, and we used to go out and we used to bird watch. And now maybe we sit on the computer again, and we perhaps, what are some of the results of this? Maybe we get more bored, and maybe we are more boring because we've got less to talk about. People with hobbies generally have something interesting to talk about. So maybe we get boring and once again, more solo, more alone. Good. So now we've got lots of lovely ideas, and I should add yours too about the letters, Lena. Let's have a look at the structure of a two-part essay. Here we really just need 4 paragraphs. In the essays that we've done up to now, we've had a look at 5 paragraphs, haven't we? But because we're just going to devote one question, one paragraph to each question, we are going to have 4 paragraphs here. Good. Okay. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. There we go. Now, why is that coming so low down? So for paragraph 1, we're looking at an introduction of probably 2 to 3 sentences, depending on whether we combine a sentence, and we'll have a look at 2 introductions just now. So first of all, as we've done before, we want to paraphrase the general statement about the topic. And this keeps me on topic and, of course, on focus. And then our sentence 2 We want to give our opinion. As we usually do in the introduction, we give our own opinion. In my opinion, or I believe that, or I'm of the opinion that, I'm of the belief that. And then in the second part of that, we want to tell the examiner what we are going to write about. So in other words, give some directions. This helps with my CC mark in terms of making it easy to follow, easy to read, and easier to understand. So we want to basically paraphrase the two questions and make them into statements, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to answer question 1, and we're going to answer question 2. So we'll paraphrase those questions. Good. Let's have a look at paragraph 2. Here we're going to answer the first question. And remember that word we saw earlier, assess the situation. Okay. And we're looking at writing 4 or 5 sentences here. So we're going to, first of all, have our topic sentence. Every paragraph has what we call a topic sentence, and that is about the topic of that paragraph, and it contains the main idea. And it's usually 95% of the time, it's in the first sentence of a paragraph. And this is the same for our reading as well. Sometimes it's the second sentence in more elaborate writing, and occasionally it's actually the last sentence. So the support argument will build up to the main point, but that's really only about 5% of the time. So with your reading, you're pretty likely to find your main idea in the first sentence. So in our topic sentence, we're going to introduce the first question, and we'll be giving our one main idea. And then we're going to support that, as we do with every argument, we're going to support that. And because we're talking about then and now, but how have relationships changed, so that relationship, that link between the past and the present, and how something's changed in that time. So of course, using that present perfect simple again. And of course, once again, this is where we can use it, we can control it, and we can get present perfect simple in. Gets me a higher score. And we're going to talk about the concrete changes, and we're going to give concrete examples. And then we could spend some time and we could talk about the result. What is the result? Remember, we said people get lonely. Maybe they get depressed. So the result is very important. And of course, that's the other important meaning for our present perfect simple, is result. Okay, so we're talking about change over time and result. So it's a great place to use present perfect simple. Now I've put here possibly add a second main idea, and in a much briefer way, how things have changed and the result. I tried to do that and I ended up with way too many words. But if you're short of words, if you're somebody who finds it difficult to find a lot to write about something, then you can have two main ideas, two different kinds of relationships, and you can have, and you can then have less on each kind of relationships, but you've still answered the topic. But be careful, especially if you're somebody who struggles with time, you struggle to write fast enough, and maybe just tackle one. And as you see, the way in which I organized my ideas, what kind of relationship, what happened then, what happens now, and then the result. You can find that you will have enough words. Okay, let's have a look at paragraph 3. That should all be on one page. Paragraph 3. Again, we're going to answer this second question. So first we assess the first question, and then we give our opinion on when we answer the second question. And again, this can also be about 4 to 5 sentences. And so here you're going to describe your view or your opinion with your explanation and your detail, or it's really your reason why, because. And once again, you're going to have number 1, a topic sentence. And you're going to be actually referring back to the information in the first paragraph. You don't need to rewrite it, but these are obviously the results of paragraph 2, which is your question 1. And you want to support with this little question. You ask yourself this little question, why? Is it good or bad? And then, of course, your answer is going to be because. And this gives reasons. So we're having to say a reason why it's bad is because people become lonely, they become isolated, they become depressed, and they lose quality of life. And they could even attempt suicide. And then paragraph number 4, once again, a conclusion, 2 to 4 sentences. And this, we're going to, number 1, we're going to summarize, very briefly summarize the main points. And then we could make a recommendation. I think we should, or I think people should. Or we could predict, we could say, unless or if people continue to spend so much time on the computer, isolation and depression and lack of connection and lack of the joy of other people will become a widespread problem. Good. So now we're going to write the essay. Do you have any questions at this point before we move on? Any questions? Lena's got a question, maybe. Well, Lena, what you would do, let's just flick back a little bit. You'd focus on perhaps how it was, how it is now, and then a result. Okay. And because if we just go back, I'll just flick back a couple of slides and we go back to our 2 questions. Our first question is how. Have a look at that little word, how has technology changed relationships? And so we have to say what people did then or what people did now. And then it gives us extra words, but also it's logical thought. If we say the result is children don't play anymore, and we've assessed the situation, or the result is that people don't write letters anymore. Okay, is this good or bad? But then the second question asks us to address, have these changes, this has this, in other words, have the changes that we've spoken about become a positive or a negative development? And then overall, we think technology is very, very positive. Or we perhaps think that there are some negative effects. And of course, we could again write about both sides here. I think it's a positive thing because, and I think it's a negative thing because, as long as we answer that question. Okay, let's have a look at what we're going to do next. Does that answer your question, Lena? Everybody's essay will be different. Everybody's essay. And even if I write this essay and I come and I write it a week later, every time I write it differently. Writing is a wonderfully creative process. And so enjoy it and enjoy expressing. It's remarkable what you can now do by writing at such a high level in a foreign language. Really, that's an incredible achievement. So let's have a look at what we're going to do now. We're going to work through this and we're going to write these paragraphs together. So let's have a look. What we're going to do is we're now going to work through the model essay paragraph, a model essay, comma, paragraph by paragraph. So as we go through, if you're able to print this out, that's useful. Otherwise, perhaps what I can do is remember to give you a copy of it when you come to the next lesson. And I've made a note. So we're now going to work through the model essay and we're going to do it paragraph by paragraph. And then right at the end of the lesson, we'll put the whole thing together. Okay, so if you can print it out, or if you have a highlighter on your pen, on your laptop that you can use, as you read, highlight the main ideas in one color and highlight the support sentences in a second color, and highlight the results in a third color, so that your essay will stand out very clearly as to the structure of that and the percentage of each paragraph. But this is very natural, so don't get too hooked up on sort of, it's something that actually comes quite naturally as a logical thought process. So let's have a look what we were given. And the statement says, nowadays, the way many people interact with each other has changed because of technology. So now what we're doing is we're going to work on the introduction. And as we've done before, paraphrase, give our opinion, and give the examiner. The word for this would be give directions. So what I want you to do is have a look at the statement, and I've given you these words on the left-hand side, and I've broken that down. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about this, each part of these, and go and write in this box here. See if you can write the sentence differently. This you can do on a piece of paper at home. You can write it down. And so if you want to do number 1, maybe pop it in the chat box. Do number 2, how would you change that? How could we write that slightly differently, changing the words? So I'm just going to leave you. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to do that, and then I will I'll get back. How are you going? Do you need some more time? Have you written some sentences? Do you want to pop one in the chat box? Okay, all right. So let's have a look at the slide. All right, so we're talking about nowadays, okay? So this is what's happening now. This is a very useful word. And note the word changed in our line 3. What has changed, okay? As we spoke before, because of. So then we did A, and now we do B. Okay, so this is what's changed, and it's this past to present that we can use what has changed. Good. So let's have a look at what I have, how I've changed it. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat box, so I'll show you what I do. Oh, thank you, Lena. Well done. Oh, There you go. That's beautiful. These days, the relationships between human beings relationships have adapted differently from before. Good. Well done. Well done. Good. Okay, the relationships have adapted. Let's have a look at that word adapted. Relationships have adapted. In a sense, more we would adapt to using technology. So it wouldn't quite be the right collocation. It wouldn't be quite the right word to use with differently. I think I've got some coming now. So what actually we adapt, human beings adapt to the technology, but the relationships wouldn't adapt to the technology. That the people would adapt. So let's have a look at a couple more. Good. So thank you for that, Lena. So let's have a look. First sentence, nowadays. This is a useful little word. Just please ignore these capital letters here. They just take so long to actually go and change all the time, and they auto jump back. So this little word, to date. So, okay, so to date, we have 5 million people in New Zealand. In other words, up to now. Okay, and we'll see it in a sentence now. Let's have a look at number 2, the way many people interact with each other. This is a useful little word, the way. And another way we could say that is the connections people have with one another. Phrase number 3, has changed because of. I could say has affected or has impacted on relationships. So you see, there's my sentence. Technology has affected relationships, or technology has impacted on relationships. And then the last word, technology, we want to change. We could put it another way, modern technological inventions, or modern technology, or IT. We could use that later on down in the lesson, down in the essay. Okay, now let's look at the 2 questions we were given. We're paraphrasing all of these, and then we're going to put them all into one introduction. So let's paraphrase the next 2 questions. And we'll do the same thing here. Question number 1, in what ways has technology affected the types of relationships we make? So there we go. Those are the words that we've been given. Take a few minutes and think about how you would change those words to say that differently. And again, you can pop it in the chat box. Okay, and did you have you popped anything in the box? I'll just reduce this and check. Oh, don't apologize, Lena. You never need to apologize. Never apologize. We're all here to learn. Thank you for playing. How are you going there, Jaswinda? Are you following? Any questions? Rishant, are you following? Any questions? Good. Good. Okay, so you've got some nice words. You've got some nice words. The other ways. So, in what ways? We're looking at it. We're looking at a question. All right, we're trying to. Oh, yes, we're making a statement, aren't we? So, we're saying modern technology has affected. Or we could say modern technology has varied the way humans relate. Okay, so has affected, or modern technology has varied the way humans create. Good, thank you, Lena. Good. I'll just Here we go. let's go on to the next slide. I've popped that in the box for you, Lena. Let's have a look at what I've written here. So for our question number 1, in what ways? This word in what ways, that's it. There's that little word how again. How? I'm going to discuss how technology has changed. How, in what ways has technology affected? So there we're looking at the word technology and affected. So I've got how, so we would say how have relationships been affected by technology, by IT devices? And then I give some examples such as the internet or computers. Okay, and that is possibly something that you want to use. You could use it in the introduction. We don't like to give too many examples in the introduction, but it makes it specific, doesn't it? And then we talk about types of relationships. We could say different kinds of relationships, Or again, we could say how people relate and how people make relationships. We could say how people form relationships. So take a slideshot of that and then try to do the same thing for question 2. They've given us the question: has this become a positive or negative development? And once again, see how if you can paraphrase those words on the screen. Now, of course, this is just an exercise. And when you're actually writing your introduction, you don't need to paraphrase every word. You can perhaps just paraphrase 1 or 2 words, but you definitely don't want to copy the question or the topic statement exactly as it is. Okay. So I'll give you a few minutes just to, how would you change this has become a positive? Has this become a positive thing? How would you vary positive or negative? And how would you vary development? And let's move on to the next slide. And these are some of the phrases. And this has had a beneficial or a detrimental. There's another nice word, adverse. So do take a screenshot of this. These are really beautiful words to vary, talking about positive and negative, good and bad. And development, we could talk about any development and impact on, an effect on. Sorry, that I think should be an effect. That should be an A, effect. How they affect relationships. Or a negative, no, that's correct in that context. Negative, a negative effect on or results in. Okay, let's move on to the next slide now. Do you want to try writing your own introduction first, or do you want to do that for homework? Just type in the box, do you want to write your own introduction? Using the information that we've done with the topic sentence and with question number 1 and question number 2. Do you want to try writing your own introduction now? In class we would. Or do you want to do that for homework after the class? Type in the chat box. Let me know. Yes, Lena, I probably do mean varied. Sorry, the screen is probably about size 2 writing, and my glasses are not good enough anymore. As varied the way, yeah, do you mean varied? Yeah. Now, okay, I'll give you some time. I'll give you 5 minutes. Hopefully you've got a screenshot of that. You've got some of the introduction, you've got some of the paraphrases we've done, and you've got your own. And now you're welcome to try writing your own introduction. You can pop it in the box. Good. You want to email it through to me? I'll put my email in the box. I'll only get it tonight, but if you want to email the whole sentence through to me, you're welcome. Your whole introduction, you're welcome. That's my email. Just you can make a copy of that. Okay. Do you need more time to finish your introduction? Just type yes or no. Oh, wow, Lena's got one. Let's have a look at that, Lena. These days, the connections people have with one another you want to say has been impacted, because very good, you're using passive. So these days, the connections people have with one another have. So there's my third person singular, my subject verb agreement. We're talking about the connections people. So people is plural, isn't it? So we want to say they have. The connections they have with one another has impacted. Oh, what am I talking about? These days, the connections people have with one another we're talking about connections, plural, sorry. So because connections is plural, we have to say the connections have impacted. The connections have been impacted by modern technology. Very nice introduction. Just change that subject verb agreement. Watch for that. It's one of the most common mistakes that every student makes, and and then you've used have been impacted. So the relationships are impact. Technology impacts relationships. Active. I'll just put that in the box. We to relationships. Oops. I've been working all day today on a lesson task 1, and that's writing academic, and it's process writing, how to describe a diagram, how to describe a process. And I've actually focused quite a lot on the passive form in that one. And I'm presenting that one online. It looks like Friday evening. So if you want to do a task 1 lesson on process writing for academic, then hop online on Friday. Okay. Here we go. Oh, wrong one. Here we go. Okay. Does anyone else have an introduction for me? You can email it through if you like. Let's have a look at the next slide. All right, so here we go. So here's my example of the first sentence in the introduction. Using those words and adding a little bit more. This is where the creative part of writing comes in. With the rapid increase in modern technological inventions that we, I've given you some examples here, that we, or that humanity, or that the globe, or that the world, or that mankind is another one. So depending on which word we choose, the rapid increase in modern technologies that we, or that humanity, have seen or have witnessed. There's my little word to date. And there's my present perfect, isn't it? That we have witnessed. So there's my, present. Very difficult to write with this. There's my present perfect simple. And there's that to date. The connections, another word would be bonds. The connections people have with each other. Connection, now you see there, I've done it. The connections or the bonds people have with each other, and this needs to be have. You see how easily it happens. That is incorrect, and it happens very, very easily. So the connections have been greatly affected. Let's read it through again. With the rapid increase in modern technological inventions that humanity has witnessed to date, the connections that people have with one another have been greatly affected. And now let's have a look at we've extended our paragraph 1 into a nice sentence. In the following essay, I will outline, in my opinion, and there's that little word again, how technology, and that's how it, isn't it? How it has impacted upon different kinds of relationships. In the following essay, I will outline, in my opinion, how technology has impacted on different kinds of relationships. And there we've got question number 2. And this one we can keep relatively short. And so I'm linking it. Why I believe this has had a detrimental effect. So let's look at it all together now. I think that's what I've done next. Yes, there you go. And I've written you 2. So I'll just give you a few minutes. Just read through that yourself. Take a screenshot if you can. So there we've got some nice flow. Do you need more time? Oh, good, good, yes. This little word with is quite useful. Let's just talk our way through that and see what's happened. Okay, so if we have a look at the first one, we've got two sentences, haven't we? Humanity has witnessed a rapid increase in modern technological inventions to date. One sentence, full stop. As a result, consequence, the connections people have with each other have been greatly affected. Connections people have with other connections have. So that's, just need to change that grammar, being correct, greatly affected. So first I will discuss, another one you could say it, I will firstly discuss, there's that little word how technology has impacted, and then and then there's my little sequence word, isn't it? After that, and then I will outline. See how I've changed that? I will discuss, and then I will outline. So I'm not repeating the word discuss. So I've used that little word, how technology's changed. And in the second question, why I believe this has impacted. And I focused it on the negative sides. Okay. You could probably put in a little, what would the word be? You could probably put in a positive point, but overall, I sort of saw the negative side of it, didn't I? But have a look. If, so we've got question number one, sorry, sentence number one, as a result, sentence number two, and then I've combined my discuss the first question and give opinion or outline why. Second, I've combined those two sentences, so I've got three sentences there, okay? But I've done it the other way around. Let's have a look. This little word with changes my sentence structure completely. And this gives me a more complex structure, if you can get it accurate. So with the rapid increase in modern technological inventions that the world has witnessed to date, and then you see I've now got a comma and I'm joining those first two sentences over there on now one sentence. And this is what gives me a complex sentence with my main clause and a dependent clause. So with the rapid increase in modern technological inventions that the world has, the connections people have with each other has been greatly affected. The connections people have, that's have again, been greatly affected. I kept copying these over. Then I move on to the next sentence. In the following essay, I will outline how technology has impacted and why. So now I've really got two sentences, but I've got my I've got my more complex structure. Okay. So that one's going to get you a slightly higher mark. And let's see what we've done next. Okay, now we can look at the paragraphs. How we're doing for time. All right. And remember, we looked earlier, we decided that our first paragraph we're going to assess, and we're going to have one main idea. It's my main idea. And we're going to support with some changes, and we're going to give a result. And I don't think I had time for that. I think I took it out. I might. We'll have a look. And once again, if you want to read the paragraph that I've written from the ideas above, and once again, if you can, use 3 different color pens. So main idea in one color, those supporting ideas, changes and examples in another color, and do your results in a 3rd color. I'll just give you a few minutes to read that through carefully. What I want you to do is circle the 2 linking words that link the sentences there. So first of all, circle your linking words. This is my my typing. That should be Facebook. Unless it's dropped off the page, I'm not sure. No, Facebook. And then put a big full stop. It's a very sensitive mouse. Do you need more time? Shall we read through it? Okay, so let's have a look. Very sensitive mouse. It's going off the page. Okay, so let's have a look. Have a look at this word undoubtedly. Another word you could use would be certainly. And this makes my argument or my point stronger. Certainly relationships. And then have a look at that, such as. So that's giving examples, isn't it? So that's a linker to give an example. We've got such as. Friendships have changed, my present perfect simple. Then I go, for instance, and I'm giving another example, aren't I? So this paragraph is fully peppered with these kind of linkers. So for example, for instance, school children, and then have a look at this, used to play. So this is this nice past function, this past structure, used to plus infinitive, used to play. Something that happened in the past. Does it happen today? No. Used to means it happened then, but it doesn't happen now. Okay, so they used to play outdoors together. There's my linker, joining those two sentences, however, and it gives me the opposite meaning, and then nowadays. So there we go. So I've gone from my past, used to, to present, nowadays. They, this is this little word that refers back to the children, doesn't it? I don't have to say the school children remain at home. I just say they remain at home alone. Not always that easy to use, especially if you're talking about two different people in the same sentence. It can often refer back to the wrong person. So you have to be careful to keep your meaning clear there. So however, nowadays, they remain at home alone and playing, and there I'm using my gerund, playing computer games, and like. There's another, I'm giving another example, like Minecraft. So I'm using quite a lot of linkers. Now I move into my second sentence, and I'm talking about friends, but I'm giving two different examples of friends. I'm talking about friends as children, and then I'm talking about adult friends. Okay, it was common. There's my past simple. It was common. It's a very useful expression. It was common, or it is common. It means it happens a lot. It was common. There's my common for adults to play outdoor sports, and again, like tennis. So I'm using very there. I'm talking about in general outdoor sports. My sort of my big collective word, and then I narrow it down like tennis. And then that linker of addition that Lena mentioned, as well as. And then I'm also going to stay using my gerund. So we're talking about playing and attending. So keeping my sentence structure similar. Attending social gatherings at sports clubs. And there's my linker again, while and indicate my opposite situation. These days, there's another way to talk about now. They spend, and this they reflects back to, does it reflect back to the adults or the children? It reflects back to the last subject that I mentioned, which is my adult. So while these days they spend more time, have a look at that, more is my comparative, more time communicating, this is a little error here, on Facebook. I think I worked on this one at 1 o'clock in the morning on Facebook, full stop. And there's my final sentence, virtual relationships are now the norm and people have fewer close friends. So that's my result. But at this stage, I haven't actually said whether, I haven't given my opinion on whether I think it's positive or negative. Okay. So there's my main idea. Relationships have changed. And then I support with past to now examples and examples. For instance, past, school used to play outdoors. However, nowadays they remain at home. So I'm covering that aspect of it. And I give 2 examples of that. First the children and then the adults. It was common for, or they used to, but we don't want to repeat used to, play outdoors as well as attending social gatherings at sports clubs. And there is my result. So Facebook. So I could actually say as a result, but sometimes I don't have to say it. It's stated as a result. I could say consequently. I could combine those sentences and say consequently. No, we won't combine them because we've already combined with a linker there as well as, and we've combined with a linker here. So that's giving me a beautiful complex structure, combining 3 ideas. Okay. And finally, we could say as a consequence or as a result, there's my result, that last sentence, virtual relationships are now the norm and people have fewer closer friends. Have a look at this little phrase, are now the norm, because a lot of things are now the norm, aren't they? So that's quite a useful little phrase that you can use in your speaking and your writing in a lot of different contexts. Good. Good. So now what you can do is do the same for paragraph 3. And remember here we're going to answer the second question. And that one's good. So we're going to be giving our opinion. So you can try writing your own paragraph. But I think we better do that for homework because we're moving on and I just want us to look through a model answer as well. And so this is something you can do for homework. You can write your own paragraph from your own ideas and you can email that through to me. And this is what I've done. So and so I've written also, there's my conclusion. Okay, so just read through my question 2. Are these positive or negative? And have a look at my conclusion. And once again, use your different color pens. Do you need more time? Let me know. Just type in the box yes or no if you need more time. Okay, I've just seen your nose. Okay, let's have a look at those. Whoops. All right, so let's have a look. So this is my paragraph 2, and straight away I answer that question. Overall, I believe that the above changes have been, and once again I'm using my present perfect, negative. Okay. As I stated in the introduction, I'm connecting that, running that through, and that gives me, it makes it easy to understand, easy to read, easy to follow, and it flows well. And then I use my linker to sequence. Firstly, as children no longer play, they have a look at that there. Okay, this is helping get a complex sentence. As children no longer play, they do not develop social skills. They do not develop social skills. They can gain weight. Okay. And so I've added 2 points. Now I'm starting to run out of words. If I don't know where my number of words, I think it's in the actual essay itself. I'd like to say more, but I'm starting to run out of words and time. So I've just condensed that. And then I added, so first I mentioned my children in the same sequence as my paragraph 1. As or if children no longer play would also work there. They do not develop social skills. So this if is this conditional is very, very useful here as well, and also creates more complex structure. As children no longer play, they do not develop social skills. I could put there, and they gain weight. Not sure why I didn't do that. 1 o'clock. And then we could say adult friends now express with emojis rather than a hug. We still love one another, but from a distance, and we don't have that physical connection anymore. We don't have that affirmation, that physical affirmation that we are loved and that our friends care for us. Then we've got a little linker here. In addition, they, and of course I'm referring to the adult friends, no longer have a strong support system, which makes them more vulnerable in times of crisis, for example, like being sick or having to go to hospital and there's nobody to come and take care of them, nobody to drive them to an appointment like friends would do. And then we've got here lack of physical connection because they're both missing that physical connection leads, and now I'm using this lovely linking way, not only leads not only to feeling, and I'm using my gerund there, isolated, but also B. So not only A plus B. So that's a nice way to link those sentences. This is the sort of thing you're looking to be able to do if you want to get that 7. Okay. This as is a nice linking word, gives me a complex sentence. And so does the second one. Where was that second one? Which, have a look at my relative clause there, which makes them more vulnerable. And more vulnerable, again, getting in that comparative, because we're always, remember, we're comparing, aren't we? Comparing the past to the present. Good. And then we've written a conclusion. Whoops. And here we go. To conclude, although people, and have a look at this, although also gives me a complex structure straight away. Remember, if you want to get a 7, you're looking at getting about 5 more complex structures in your writing. So things like that, not only, but, if, or as, although, and how we've joined previous sentences with while or however. And in the conclusion, we're using although. This is a useful one to use in the conclusion. You could also use despite the fact that. But just stick to that phrase, despite the fact that. If we move away from that, if we just use despite, my grammar changes completely. So just stay with despite the fact that, subject, verb, object. Despite the fact that people appear to have many more connections today. In fact, this is a useful little word as well, they have fewer, there's my comparative again, they have more connections, but they have fewer close relationships. And my linker, and less direct contact due to or as a result of technology. So here I'm going back to my general statement. I'm wrapping up with my conclusion, and I'm addressing my topic, which was technology, and I'm addressing my focus, which is which is talking about relationships have been affected. So they have more connections, that it's been effect A, and they have fewer close relationships, effect B, and less direct contact, effect C. And then I say, in my opinion, and I think I should probably have a comma there, although it probably didn't show it up in my computer. In my opinion, comma, although I didn't show it as an error in my grammar check. Usually I put a comma there. In my opinion, this development is negative as, at the end of the day, a little sort of colloquial expression, I could just say is negative as we all depend on others, but I've added in this, gives me a little bit of flow, gives me a little bit of style for my writing. Is negative as, at the end of the day, we all depend on others. And now I'm giving a little bit of a wrap up. We all depend on others, or no man is an island, something along those lines. Human beings are social animals. So I'm wrapping up with a statement. We all need to depend on others. And now I'm going to give a recommendation. I therefore recommend, so in this essay I'm giving a recommendation, that people should seek to spend less time alone on electronic devices, change my vocabulary, and a further recommendation, strive to strengthen relationships that are so vital to us all. So there's a lot that goes into it, isn't there? Good. So that's a good conclusion. Following my pattern and wrapping up with a general statement and a recommendation in this particular essay. I could give a prediction. I could say, if, and there would be my if again, if the current trend continues, I predict that people become more and more disconnected, more and more disenfranchised. This could lead to sort of a broad spectrum autism, where people just don't know how to relate, can't express, and cannot no longer express feelings and emotions. So I could wrap up with a prediction as well. I'll write a second one for that for next time. Good.